Hey everybody, Ditkaz here, finally bringing you my winter 2025 anime rankings. It took me way longer than planned to get through these shows, but I am trying to get through the rest of this year's shows before the end of the year, even though it's coming up pretty quick. As usual, there's probably going to be some spoilers about some different shows that I'm going to talk about today, so if you're not caught up on all the shows from the winter 2025 season that you want to watch, either skip ahead in the video when I start mentioning a show that you don't want spoiled on, or just put this video on the back burner until you're all caught up on those shows, and then you can watch it then without any worries. We're going to just jump right in here, starting with the bottom of my list. We got 18 shows, so let's start with number 18. The first show at the bottom of the list is Solo Leveling Season 2. Let's just see how many people get mad at me for having this way down at the bottom of my list, even though this is the anime adaptation of the best part of Solo Leveling's story across the entirety of the webtoon. As I've said in the past, I do enjoy this series, even if it's overrated in my opinion. It's still one of the most well-animated shows that you're going to see right now, and it has really intense fight sequences in a lot of cases. They're really cool, they're really flashy, a lot of things going on. But the story really isn't anything special in my opinion, and it's very, very much, especially the Jeju Island arc that is the core of the second season. Obviously there's earlier parts with the whole him meeting like the ice elves and all that stuff as he continues to get stronger and stronger prior to the Jeju Island arc, and then him officially getting reclassified as an S-class hero and all that. But the Jeju Island arc is the main point. It's the climax of this season. It's the best part. It's the best part of this season. It's the best part of the webtoon's entire storyline. Everywhere from here just goes downhill. But the whole show, especially this arc, is really very much a copy of Hunter x Hunter. Like I said, especially this arc. It's the Chimera Ant arc from Hunter x Hunter, which is considered to be one of the best manga arcs of all time. So it's no surprise this is the best part of this one, because they copied an already really good storyline pretty much bar for bar. Many of the characters introduced this season, much like previous characters they had, have some really cool designs, but as is the case with this show as a whole, even the strongest characters that get introduced are basically just nobodies who don't really matter in the grand scheme of the series compared to Jinwoo. They're all just completely overshadowed. Again, for people who aren't bothered by that, they're okay with him being the only character that's really worth a damn in this storyline in terms of a fight at this point. I guess that's okay. You're allowed to have that opinion. I just feel like it's a waste of a bunch of very interesting character designs, like a lot of really cool character designs, especially when you compare their designs to Mr. Ultimate Cookie Cutter protagonist himself. At number 17, we have I May Be a Guild Receptionist, but I'll solo any boss to clock out on time. I had to watch this series, if for no other reason than the main character being voiced by Rie Takahashi, who is my female anime VA GOAT. I did enjoy this show a lot, and I thought it had a really cool premise and a lot of pretty interesting world building in the background of it. It just doesn't quite match up to a lot of the other shows this season, because I just really feel like this season had a very, very strong slate of shows. Seeing the main character in this series go from being this like super cute, friendly receptionist at work to just being incredibly angry and one-shotting a lot of like big boss monsters with this huge hammer it's pretty funny. It all like goes really well, I think, and I think Rie does a great job bringing that character to life. I like a lot of the other characters in this show a lot, especially that main group, Silver Sword or whatever they're. I don't remember the exact thing. It's been a while since I actually watched this show at this point. As I said, it took a bit to get through all this, but I thought they were pretty cool. I thought the story was interesting. If they do have more of this show in the future, I will continue to watch it. Even if it is down at the bottom of this list, it's still a good show. At number 16, we have Beheneko, the elf girl's cat is secretly an S-ranked monster. Finally, we have a show on one of my rankings that's on High Dive, because I finally got a High Dive account. I've been interested in this series since I first saw a volume of the manga in Barnes& and Noble, and that's also how I knew this show was going to be kind of lewd, or at the very least have nudity in it, because the mangas are wrapped in plastic when you go to the store in person, which tells you that it's going to have like some level of adult content, and it didn't seem like it was going to be like a super gory series, so I assumed that there were going to be anime titties in it, right? Whatever. What I wasn't expecting with this show was for basically all of the main female cast that end up becoming party members with the main character being incredibly horny for the main character, who they all believe is like an elemental cat creature thing that's just really strong, and he's small, like he's a kitten, and they're like all talking about wanting to be bred by him, and it's just kind of awkward when that's supposed to be that girl's pet. Overall, I thought the show had a pretty good story, although the animation could be better. It's just kind of lazy at some points during like fight sequences, and the actual main character, when he's just a kitten form, his size is not super consistent. There's sometimes where he's like this big and he's like fitting on the elf girl's chest, and other times he's like closer to the size of a house cat, and like just different various sizes in between. It's just kind of weird. There's not like a set size for him in his regular kitten form. I don't really understand that. But again, I'm not going to fault that it happens sometimes. It's probably artistic reasons for it. I still enjoyed the show. If there are more seasons of this show later on, I will keep watching it. At number 15, we have Zenshu. This is the first isekai on the list for this season, and it's kind of a really strange show, but I really ended up enjoying it overall. When I was putting this watch list together, my cousin kind of said that I think he ended up dropping this show because it was just a little weird to him. Overall, I did like it, even if it's kind of different in terms of its overall themes, and its its like vibe of the show is a little weird. The thought of going into the world of like your favorite series and being able to stop the bad things from happening in that series is kind of interesting to me. Even if in this particular show, the author, who had died like just before the main character gets transported there, is also in that world and is apparently able to affect it, and is trying to basically like prevent her from changing her story and stuff like that. And all of the people that die, that she prevents from dying, end up dying anyway, and then the world gets destroyed, just like it does in the end of the actual like movie that she was in love with, which I can really understand why people in that world wouldn't like this movie and it would be panned, because the whole concept of that is just like, who wants to watch like literally everything just lose, pretty much. Just kind of weird, but she ends up saving the day. The world is saved / like kind of reformed, and everybody that was died kind of comes back, and all this stuff. And then the main character gets to go back to the real world, where she's a famous anime director, and gets to, at this point, she fell in love with the hero in that world, so she actually got to realize that she did know what first loves felt like, and proceeds to be able to successfully make the movie that she was like struggling with whenever she died. Although apparently, I'm assuming it's kind of more she was like in a coma for a while during the process of this. The very end of the show, seeing the group of heroes kind of crossing the other side of the street, at first I thought that it was either meant to just be like a group of cosplayers, or really I thought that it was more like a figurative, like imaginary thing, like, oh hey, like, you know, in passing, like, see you next time or whatever. But then she like turns and looks all shocked and is like, what the hell? And that's the cut on the show. So that implies that they actually managed to get there. These fantasy heroes, including the hero that she fell in love with, came to the real world after her, basically. Really interesting kind of plot twist at the end. Kind of a shitty way to end a series like that, considering I'm assuming there's not going to be anything more, but it really makes me wish that they would make like a sequel series that's kind of like more of a slice of life thing, with them being in the real world and all that, and like it would be more of a really like very comedic thing. It wouldn't have to be a dark, serious tone to it, and you'd be able to get to see like her explore that relationship, because like her and the hero fell in love before the end of the show, before she, you know, saved the world, so to speak. Again, pretty cool show, pretty well animated in a lot of cases. The music's really good. I liked it. I would watch more if they, like I said, if they had a sequel, I'd watch it. At number 14, we have The Red Ranger Becomes an Adventurer in Another World. So we have another isekai series, and this one is very Super Sentai based. As a huge Power Rangers fan as a kid, I mean, I watched all the original Power Rangers shows, the old OG movie, Power Rangers Turbo movie whenever it came out. I basically watched the show up until like Power Rangers Lost in Space. I felt I had to watch this show, and honestly, I loved it. I'm not going to say that this show is like a great A+ series, but it's a good time in my opinion. It's very entertaining. I do have it low on this list because much like some of these other shows, there's just a lot of really good shows this season, right? And again, it's not a great show, but it's a fun show in my opinion. I enjoyed the ridiculous nature of it with like the main character always talking about bonds and how like that's his where he gets all these powers and stuff from, and like whenever he transforms and he poses and then there's explosions behind him and it's actual explosions and like people get affected and they're always like, where did these explosions come from? It's just a funny little repeating gag. I felt like I laughed at it pretty much every time the explosion thing happened and someone went flying. It's just really funny. Seeing people get confused by the things he says I thought was funny. It's not the best show, but it's just a fun show to watch. And the plus side, although it does have 3D CG, they don't overuse it. They pretty much only use it on the mechs and like big monsters, which isn't terrible. That's a decent use for it. It's not the worst 3D CG I've ever seen. It's not failure frame, but it's also not like Witch from Mercury, which is like peak 3D CG. Still, good show. I'll watch more if they get more of it. I really hope there's more of it. I like the characters a lot. Cool premise. Let's go. At number 13, we have Unnamed Memory Season 2. I was really, really excited to see this season after finding out that the first season was just that, just a first season, and was like the first half of the story and not just like an ending and like what would have been the worst ending for a show ever. Like I was originally mad when I first saw the ending of it, and then like I said, I did some research, found out there was a second half, got a little bit of spoilers about some of the stuff that happens with this. Not a huge deal. Overall, I was kind of let down a little bit by this season, as it just wasn't quite as good as the previous season in my opinion. It just kind of felt like to me, it seemed like the author maybe didn't like the way the romance played out with the main characters in the first part. So then they kind of came up with a way that they could restart it without actually making a whole new thing and like rebooting the series. They still kind of rebooted the storyline within it with this time traveling aspect and like, you know, the original timeline getting like wiped out, right? And you get to kind of like see the two main characters fall in love in a whole different way, and like it plays out differently. But there's other stuff that goes on in the background, and you find out like that there's a family that retains their memories whenever people use those items to like go back in time and rewrite time, and it's apparently causing some weird erosion to the world. And it doesn't fully explain everything. It kind of just gets jammed in the last couple episodes. It's a little weird. But then like the main heroine ends up becoming, like she ends up kind of going back in time, taking out basically not taking out, but becoming the new person that retains their memories like that. And then wipes out that new timeline that the whole second season takes place in. To go back, she basically restores the old timeline from the first season and kind of goes back to where it's like, okay, we're married, we're in this point, and she's a witch again. And then the main male character's like, okay, well, it sounds like we need to destroy these. So they destroy the things, and then it resets the timeline again. She becomes a witch again. Her city that survived in the beginning of the second season, I'm pretty sure is destroyed again, because just the way everything works out. It turns out that like at one point the prince was supposed to have died, but then at least in the final timeline he doesn't die, he just gets kidnapped. So she goes and finds him, and then he's a little kid, but like he also has his memory, like both of them have all of their memories retained. So it kind of leads to something that I think could be viewed as problematic to people just based on the way they react to certain other shows, because you have this grown woman who basically lives through 400 years, waits for this kid to survive, then saves him from the demon thing that like kidnapped him and all these other kids, finds out he still has his memories, so then it's assumed that then they live together until he's old enough for them to actually get married again. But then you would assume that because of that, like, they're still in love with each other. So people will probably find it problematic that you have this like 400-year-old woman who's in love with a child at this point, ignoring the factor that he has the memories from whenever he was an adult and they'd already been married in like the previous timeline. It's kind of a weird thing. Just a weird ending to the show. It wasn't terrible. The show's still well animated, well acted. The world is cool. It's just kind of a messy storyline in the end. And if it wasn't for everything before him going back in time at the end of the first season, if it would have ended with like him getting married to her at the end of the first season and that was it, overall I think it would have been a cleaner story. It would have been a better all-around story to me personally. But again, it's still okay. I don't regret watching this series. It's just I hoped it was going to be better whenever I saw that there was an additional second season to kind of pick up where the shitty ending of the first season left off. At number 12, we have Madaka Kuroiwa is impervious to my charms. And I have a lot less to say about this show. I was very passionate about Unnamed Memory, apparently. So I kind of yapped a little bit. This show, Madaka Kuroiwa, it is a fun rom-com, in my opinion, but it just couldn't quite match up to some of the other shows, especially other like rom-coms and romance series that aired this season. But I did still enjoy it a lot and hope that there is more of this show in the future. The whole concept that the main male character is not unaffected by the female character trying to like basically get his attention, and like the whole thing is like everyone gives her attention. She's the queen bee, as she calls herself, and he's like always glaring at her, and it's just that he's training to be a monk, so he can't like doesn't feel like he can have that kind of interest in a woman, and it's kind of like his training. I thought it was kind of funny, but then like he kind of like does have an interest in her, and she actually starts developing a legit interest in him. Kind of leads to some really hilarious moments. I'd like to see where the series goes. Like maybe he ends up giving up on becoming a monk, and they do. And I don't know how it's going to play out. If there's more, I'll watch it. It's a funny show. It's a fun show. It's well animated, well acted, good show. We'll see in the future. At number 11, we have Ameku MD, Doctor Detective. Before watching this show, I saw people on Twitter referring to it as a female-led anime house, and I kind of feel like they weren't kidding with that comparison, except for the factor that Ameku is not using a cane. She's not crippled at all. She's not a pervert, and she's not a really shitty person like House is. Which, sure, that seems like that's a lot of her personality, but the whole concept of, like, kind of being like, I'm right regardless, and just looking at something and figuring it out is the same. Seeing her basically just pick cases because they seem interesting to her, and a lot of them being like some kind of a mystery, was really cool. There's also a lot of this show that kind of feels very like Sherlock Holmesy, in my opinion, and it had like that kind of feel to the episodes. It was really cool. I enjoyed it a lot. Much of the rest of the cast of the show was good too, especially her partner, who I can't remember his name off the top of my head, who just has some absolute beast mode moments, especially early in the show, where people try to like come up and do something and he just bodies them with karate. It's really cool. Would like to see more of that with him. Cool little kind of implied romance aspect there. I would definitely watch more of this show too if they have any more seasons in the future. At number 10, we have Even Given the Worthless Appraiser class, I'm Actually the Strongest. Now, this is a pretty common fantasy trope in anime, especially where you have a super weak character because of whatever his like class or whatever that he is, ends up having something happen that turns him into the strongest character. Now, the title is a little misleading. He's not the strongest because he's an appraiser, but him being an appraiser and getting his appraise ability upgraded because of things that happen in the story ends up making him overpowered because he gains all kinds of crazy skills that seemingly is only possible because of his appraisal skill, but it's realistically more because of like a magic eye that he gets given. Seeing that main character in the very beginning get literally used as bait and like left for dead by his party members was really kind of like tough to watch, I felt like. But then he ends up getting saved by a girl who is like literally a spirit of the world tree and her guardian, and he kind of like that's when he ends up losing his eye because he goes to like leave and he gets attacked by another monster. They replace his eye with this magic eye, and then they end up going on this adventure to like he's like going to escort her to find all of her sisters who are other spirits of world trees, and like they're all kind of cool. It's a really fun adventure, and I'd really like to see more of this show, especially because just all the characters are great. All the siblings they've shown so far, their guardians have been cool, and I want to see specifically if they describe and tell exactly what happens to, I believe it's the oldest of their siblings, who they show her, but like they never get to meet her during the show. But it shows that she's kind of turned evil, like she's been corrupted in some way. I think it kind of mentioned it, but it doesn't give like the exact details of her being fully corrupted. And so I'd like to see if that if they kind of go into that, and if they're able to kind of like save her in the end of the series and bring her back to being like a good character, whether that's at the very end of the show storyline or sometime earlier, how that's all going to play out. I'd really like to see it. Hopefully there's more of this show. It's good. At number 9, we have OKITSURA. Fell in love with an Okinawan girl, but I just wish I knew what she's saying. This series was really interesting, if for no other reason than getting to learn so many different ways that Okinawans and Okinawan culture differs from mainland Japan's. Every episode had a couple different little like lessons built into it, explaining like some of these differences, whether it's a lot of it had to do with like they have their own language and dialect that is their cultural thing, to even the ones that like they do speak traditional Japanese, but like they have their own terms and phrases that aren't common on the mainland and they don't necessarily realize it, just different things they do and say. And like most of them don't ride bikes because it's such a small island. There's only one train on the island, and just different little things is super interesting to see. As someone who lived on the island of Okinawa once, for about 3 years, whenever I was really little, because my father was in the Air Force, I have always enjoyed learning more about Japan in general, but also Okinawa specifically, because I don't have a whole lot of memories of my time there. I just remember it was very warm, and I did enjoy my time there. I was happy while I was there. So it really drew me to this show because I do have a connection with Okinawa myself. Outside of that, the animation was incredible. The characters were really good. And I'm really hoping to see more of this show in the future because it's really good and it's very educational in its own way. And I'm rooting for not the character that he fell in love with, but I'm rooting for the other female character who translates for him, Kana. She's the best. At number 8, we have I'm getting married to a girl I hate in my class. Now, this is a pretty typical trope for rom-coms, but it's still very well done in this series. I felt like the execution of making these two characters live together because they're getting married, and them trying to like keep it a secret from all their friends, and most of the series they do before a couple people do find out, as they continue to grow closer throughout it. I thought it was really great. It was well done. The reveal towards the end that both of these characters actually did already have like crushes on each other, but I forget exactly what happens, but there's kind of like a misunderstanding that makes them think they don't like each other, or that gives them a reason where they start acting like they don't like each other. It was pretty easy to see coming, but it's still something I enjoyed. I thought it was, again, it was done the right way. It wasn't done like in a cheap manner, and it was a good payoff. I hope to see more of this show. It's a fun show. It's well animated, good voice acting, good characters. We'll see where it goes from here. At number 7, we have Tying the Knot with an Amagami Sister. I enjoyed the entirety of this show a lot, although I did feel quite a bit of anger towards the character Shirahi during the second half, due to actions that she did that set up the whole last arc of the show. She gets jealous of the main character getting closer to all of the Shrine Maiden girls, and she feels like they kind of took her place beside him, and she makes a wish to a god that whole thing never happened. She stayed at the orphanage, he stays at the orphanage, and they become a couple, and her and him both have memories of the old world, though she acts like she didn't because she's trying to, still be with him. And it kind of like really makes him real distraught because he's lost what he has determined is his place and like part of what his goal for the future was because of all of this. Now they end up, coming to terms that he confronts her about it. She admits to everything and finally admits her feelings and admits that it's her own fault for not admitting her feelings to him sooner. And just kind of running from it because she didn't want things to change. And then they end up going back to the old world, although the god that set the whole thing up is like, well, now, like, you guys aren't going to be together because that bond's going to be cut. They imply that, you know, she's going to still try to make that happen anyway. They're just going to rebuild their bond. And they talk about, that kind of brings, like, the whole title of this of tying the knot full circle there. So everybody does kind of get this happy ending in the end of the series, but it doesn't end up resolving who he's going to end up choosing to marry. So I hope there is more of this show, because I kind of always hate seeing series like this not have a resolution, and I'd like to see which of the girls he does end up with choosing and ends up marrying. Even if they end up going with the possibility of it just being like, screw it, they're not actually blood related, we're just going to do, you know, the harem route and it's sister wives or whatever. I don't know. Whatever they end up doing, I'd like to see it actually come to a decisive resolution, so hopefully there is more of this series in the future. If not, it was still a good show. At number 6, we have the 100 Girlfriends Who Really, 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 Really Love You, Season 2. Hopefully that was enough reallys. I don't remember. I didn't write it down this time. With this, the ultimate harem rom-com returns, and it doesn't disappoint. Now, having read a bunch of the manga, although at this point I am behind quite a few chapters on it, I'm still ahead of where the anime is, even at the end of this season. But it's still really impressive to me how the author has managed to have so many different girlfriends, and each of them feels unique and well thought out. Eventually there is a little more crossover in terms of like the archetypes of the different girls, but that's bound to happen when you're looking at 100 of them. But where I'm at, there's closer to like 30 from what I remember. Although some of them have similarities, like I think there's multiple that would fall into like the tsundere category, they still end up being unique because they have slightly different backgrounds and hobbies and other characteristics to set them apart. So it all works really well. Here's to more 100 Girlfriends in the future. At number 5, we have Bogus Skill Fruitmaster. About that time, I became able to eat unlimited numbers of skill fruits that kill you. This was one of the first shows that I watched from this season, and I was very impressed with it. It's not the absolute best animated show, but it's still good, and the concepts for it are very well executed. I think there's still plenty of mysteries to be had in this show, specifically about the nun who kind of like gives out the skill fruits at the beginning of the series, and it seems like she kind of had an idea of actually what the different skill fruits did, with like selecting the one, like causing the one girl, like him basically pushing him to the skill fruit that he had that ended up giving a fruit master, and then the other girl getting like the sword saint thing or whatever it was. She's clearly a bad guy, at least unless there's some other weird, you know, turn where they haven't shown something. She's a bad guy. Whoever she works for, want to get more information on it. I'm really hoping to see more seasons of this show to get these answers, so we'll see what happens. At number 4, we have I left my A-rank party to help my former students reach the dungeon depths. My best friend and my cousin were both very, very high on this show, and after watching the first half of it, I can see why. It's a very well animated fantasy series, and it has a great main cast and a very interesting world built up. The trope of the main character being integral to this super strong, famous party, but being overlooked and assumed that they can just do better even without him, is very common in fantasy tropes, but it's still done very well here. Even if it's crazy how much his former party refused to take no for an answer whenever they realized that they weren't successful without him, and they tried to like re-recruit him, and he's like, no, I'm in my own party now, like you should have realized what was going on, like not being willing to listen to him, especially because like the leader of that party was supposedly his like childhood friend, and the dude just turns out to be a dickhead. I feel like he gets what's coming to him in the end of that, in his ending to that show. So we'll see what goes on from there though with the rest of it. The one thing about this series that was weird but is done really well and works really well, and that also makes this show unique, is how although it's a very medieval fantasy series, the adventurers live stream the things they do, and it how they make that all work, where it's like a weird like magic device, and it's like it doesn't look technology at all really, other than the fact that it has it's like an eye lens. I thought it was very interesting, and it really fit the setting. I'm really looking forward to watching the second half of the show in the next few days as I get watching the spring season. Because so far I've only watched the first half. So we'll see where the second half ranks in spring. At number 3, we have Honey Lemon Soda. I was very, very surprised by just how much I enjoyed this show. It looked like a pretty decent romance series from the trailer, and it ended up being just this very well paced and incredibly heartwarming story with great characters and just a great overall story all around. Seeing the main character's growth and like basically like when she has to confront her dad about how overprotective he is, and like her friends basically make him realize that, hey, yeah, she could have went to this school that like she was smart enough to get into, but she flunked because she really it wasn't what she wanted to do, and we're helping her grow as a person. Everything with that I thought was really cool. Even the funniness of the guy that she fell in love with, him being basically being like, I still haven't accepted you yet. I cackled really hard at that. The whole cast of characters in the show is really great. They were all enjoyable, and it seems like they could have more story. Considering it was only at the very end that like she confessed to him, and then he basically accepted that, and they started dating. It seemed like there's more that they can show with it. So if there are more seasons of this show, I will definitely check it out. But if not, it was still a very satisfying ending. At number 2, we have the second half of Shangri-La Frontier Season 2. This second half started really, really strong with the fight against Lycagon and introducing the character OKITSURA, and it stayed pretty solid throughout the whole season, really. Seeing Sunraku get his Arcanum and like finding out that basically they introduced the whole concept of the Arcanum as kind of like a subclass that everybody gets when they hit level 99, and then learning that level 99 isn't it's the cap, but you can break that level cap, and like he's already met that first step of it with like the extend aspect of it. I thought was pretty cool. Getting to see him kind of get closer to Saiga Zero and everything that they kind of do with this series, how they kind of set off on the to deal with another Colossus, which I feel like I'm going to butcher this name. It's like Katarnid of the Abyss. I thought that was all really interesting. That whole like inverted world and the ocean and everything was really cool. The only real gripe I have is getting left on a major cliffhanger for the fighting game tournament that he's helping Katso in. Him and Pencilgon are helping Katso in. But that just means that I'm going to be that much more excited when the next season airs. So here it comes. Can't wait for Shangri-La Frontier Season 3. Haven't looked to see when it's coming out, if it's already been announced yet, but the show's I'm pretty sure it's still super popular. It's great. That third season should come sooner rather than later, hopefully. Let's get it whenever it comes. And finally, at number 1 in the Winter 2025 anime season, we have the second half of ReZero Season 3. This is another really solid season of ReZero in the books, and honestly, this second half of this third season was very comedic. Specifically, the whole fight between the Archbishop of Greed, Regulus, and Reinhard, because they can't damage him, they can't kill him for most of the fight, but Reinhard just bodies him, and it's just he basically just embarrasses this guy, just beats the hell out of him, throws him all around. He can't do anything to Reinhard because Reinhard is the most overpowered character in this show. It's ridiculous. Like, he sends him to space, and he's like, oh, you shouldn't have thrown me to the moon. And it's like, so you're telling me this guy, Reinhard, can breathe in space? Like, he doesn't need to breathe. He just bounces off the moon and just rockets down and beats the hell out of this guy. It was just so funny to me. I couldn't believe it for how dark this show usually is. Just that comedic aspect to that whole fight was pretty refreshing. It was a nice, like, different take on it. Granted enough that there's not comedy in this show at other points, but like during a serious fight like this hasn't really happened before. It was also nice to see closure for Reinhard's family because of the whole thing with like his grandmother being reincarnated and Wilhelm fighting her, even though the fight ends up getting messed up because of their son Heinkel, who's a big piece of shit. He's really the only person in terms of that doesn't really have closure. He's still all mad, and he's like a terrible father who's like hating on his son. It's like blaming her for killing his mother. It's like, I don't get how any of them would say that he killed his mom. Like, he didn't choose to inherit the Sword Saint blessing. just as she's fighting the White Witch. He didn't choose to inherit it at all. Like, he had no control over it. It's not his fault, other than the fact that he was alive. So if anything, you could say it's Heinkel's fault for getting his wife pregnant and causing the kid to be born. Like, it's just it's a dumb thought process I never really get about characters. But the fact that they all kind of just accept that you killed your grandmother. Okay, he killed his grandmother zombie because you watched that happen, but he's like, I didn't kill my grandmother. She was already dead. So he's just the realest dude ever. Reinhardt's a badass. It was also really cool to see Al and Priscilla fighting. Although I have a theory about Al still that I'm really interested to see how it plays out. I want to see more about him in the future. But getting to see them fight and show their worth. I'm still kind of confused though, because there's a part where Al he's talking to Hoshin, one of the other queen candidates, and he makes a comment about asking who she is because Hoshin can't do magic, he says. So I'm wondering if that's either like a double and it's like somebody who's like a guard of hers, or or if she could always do magic and he just didn't know that. Not sure what's going on there. I'm kind of interested to see. They kind of brushed that over. It does suck that the Archbishop of Lust kind of gets away and like still have no idea how they can possibly kill her. But again, there's only so many of these archbishops. They have to figure out how to deal with her eventually in the future. She's got to be a villain for like a future season. As well as the fact they haven't gotten to deal with gluttony yet. Although we've now got more information. We've seen that there's like multiple parts to gluttony, like multiple different bodies. And then like we've seen like the main one at this point, I believe, anyway. But because of that, Rem is still like asleep and nobody but Subaru remembers her. And then we find out at the very end, it's revealed that Julius, he's still perfectly like alive and able to fight. At least seemingly he's able to fight. We haven't really seen that, I guess. But he's still alive and moving around and has his memories. But everybody but Subaru has forgotten about him apparently now. Now that should lead to Julius and Subaru becoming actual like better friends, I would assume, since Subaru is the only one who remembers him. So I'm assuming he's not going to be able to go back to his full nightly duties because no one has any idea who the hell he is. So he's probably going to end up working really closely with Subaru for a while. I would assume in the next season. I'm not really sure. I'm way behind on light novels of this. Eventually, will get the rest of the light novels and end up ahead of the series in terms of reading stuff. But we'll see where that goes. It was a great season. Looking forward to more whenever it comes out. ReZero is always great. Best of the best for this season, and a very, very good season to start 2025's anime off. And that's my winter 2025 anime rankings. I finally got a show on High Dive on there, although I can't remember if any other shows on my watch list for other seasons are on High Dive. I do know that I've got the new Gundam, which I don't know exactly. It's got a whole bunch of letters that I don't really know how you would pronounce it. Is on Amazon for the spring season that I'll be starting here shortly after I finish recording this video. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on my rankings and if there's any shows from this season that you think I missed. Once again, with another holiday break coming up, because when I recorded this, we just finished, we're at the beginning of December, just finished Thanksgiving. We're going to be coming up on Christmas break, and I do work at a school, so I'll have a couple weeks off. I'm hoping to knock out the other seasons of shows from 2025 before the end of this year, or at the very least be caught up by like mid-January, including whatever shows I choose to watch for the winter 2026 season that'll be starting in January. Anyways, that's it for this video. So if you want to see more like it, you can check out my channel to see previous seasons ranking videos. Or if you want to see other content from me, once I get caught up on all these different shows and I can get back to streaming consistently, you can check out my Twitch channel where I'm almost always gaming, although sometimes I'm opening like magic card packs. And also whenever it comes out, I'll be opening up the next V-card trading card game set. You can check that out on my Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/Ditkaz. That's Ditkaz, just like it is here on YouTube. Thanks as always for watching, and have a great day, everyone.